Calista knew 3 things the moment the silver mark burned into her chest. First, she had 3 days before the full moon. Second, the moon would consume one of their souls. And third, the lone wolf she'd been meeting in secret would die beside her, or she would die without him. Pause for just a moment, because I need to ask you something before we continue. If you had to choose between dying with the person you love or watching them die while you survive, what would you pick? Hit subscribe if that question just made your stomach drop, smash that like button if you're already emotionally invested, and comment your answer along with where you're watching from. I'm reading every response because by the end of this story, I want to know if your answer changes. This isn't just a love story, it's a question that will haunt you. Now let's continue. Chapter 1. The knife had missed her throat by inches that first night. She'd twisted left, felt the blade slice through her cloak, and drove her elbow into her attacker's ribs. The rogue wolf snarled, stumbling back, but 2 more emerged from the shadows. Their eyes glowed amber in the darkness, hungry and feral. She reached for her dagger, but a 4th rogue kicked it from her hand. It clattered against stone, useless. The Alpha's daughter, one sneered, circling her. Daddy's not here to save you now. Callista's heart hammered, but she kept her stance wide, her breathing steady. She'd trained for this. She was strong. She was. The largest rogue lunged. She braced for impact, but it never came. A flash of silver fur exploded from the treeline. The creature moved like liquid shadow, massive jaws clamping down on the rogue's neck. Bone cracked. The rogue went limp. The other 3 scattered, but the silver wolf was faster. It chased them into the dark, snarls echoing through the forest until silence returned. Calista pressed her back against a tree, chest heaving. Her hands shook. She'd been stupid to ride this far alone, to venture past the borders where her father's protection meant nothing. The silver wolf emerged from the shadows, blood staining its muzzle. It was larger than any wolf she'd ever seen, its eyes an impossible shade of gray, almost human. It watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Then it shifted. The transformation was brutal and quick. Bones cracked, fur receded, and within seconds a man stood before her. Tall, broad-shouldered, covered in scars that painted stories of violence across his bare chest and arms. His dark hair fell into those same gray eyes, and his expression was cold. "You're far from home, princess," he said, his voice rough like gravel. Calista straightened, forcing her fear down. "I didn't ask for your help." Clearly. He picked up her dagger and tossed it to her. She caught it. "Next time the rogues come, try not to lose your only weapon." "Who are you?" His jaw tightened. "Someone you should stay away from." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." He turned to leave. "Wait." She stepped forward. "You saved my life. At least tell me your name." He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something almost like regret. "Bastion Griffin. And if you're smart, you'll forget you ever met me." Then he was gone, disappearing into the forest like smoke. Calista stood alone in the clearing, her heart still racing. Bastion Griffin. She knew that name. Everyone did. The lone wolf exiled 5 years ago for killing another pack member. The wolf her father had personally banished, declaring him too dangerous to live among them. She should have been afraid. Instead, all she felt was curiosity. When she returned to the castle, her father was waiting in the great hall. Alpha Ironclaw stood before the fireplace, his massive frame casting long shadows across the stone floor. His silver eyes, the mark of their bloodline, fixed on her the moment she entered. "Where were you?" His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of command. "Riding. I needed to clear my head." "Past the borders?" She hesitated. He always knew. "Calista." He turned to face her fully. "How many times must I warn you? The forest beyond our lands is not safe. Rogues hunt there. Exiles. Creatures that would tear you apart for sport. I can handle myself. Can you? He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. You're my daughter. My heir. Your life is not your own to risk. The familiar frustration burned in her chest. So what am I supposed to do? Stay locked in this castle forever? Smile and nod while you arrange my future? I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need freedom. His expression hardened. Freedom is a luxury we cannot afford. Not with the moon's curse hanging over us. The curse. Always the curse. Every full moon, the moon god demanded payment. A pair of fated lovers, bound by destiny. But the moon's mercy was cruel. It only took one. The chosen pair had 3 days to decide who would be consumed. Their soul fed to the moon to keep the balance, to prevent chaos from devouring the packs. It had been this way for generations, since the first alpha made the pact. One lover would die. The other would live, hollow and broken, forever haunted by the choice. The next full moon is in 3 weeks, her father continued. The oracle will announce the chosen ones soon. We must be prepared. Prepared for what? To watch someone choose which half of their soul to destroy. To honor the sacrifice that keeps us all alive. He placed a hand on her shoulder. I know you don't understand. But when you're alpha, you'll see. Some prices must be paid. Calista pulled away. I'll never believe that. She left before he could respond, climbing the spiral stairs to her chambers. The moon hung outside her window, fat and luminous, beautiful and terrible. She pressed a palm against the cold glass and thought of gray eyes and a voice that told her to stay away. She should listen. She wouldn't. 3 days later, Calista returned to the forest. She told herself it was just to explore, to reclaim the freedom her father tried to cage. But her path led her to the river where she'd been attacked, and she found herself searching the tree-line for silver fur. You're either brave or stupid, a voice said behind her. She spun. Bastian leaned against a tree, arms crossed, watching her with that same unreadable expression. I could say the same about you, she replied. You're on pack lands. If my father's guards find you, they won't. He pushed off the tree, moving closer. I know these woods better than they do. Better than you do, apparently, considering how easily those rogues cornered you. Heat flushed her cheeks. I told you I didn't ask for your help. And yet here you are again. Looking for more trouble. Looking for answers. That made him pause. About what? About you. About why you're here. Why you saved me when you could have let them kill me and disappeared. Bastian's expression darkened. You think I'm some kind of hero? I'm not. I killed a member of my own pack. Your father exiled me for a reason. Did they deserve it? The question hung between them. Bastian's jaw clenched, muscles tensing beneath scarred skin. Does it matter? He finally said. Yes. He studied her for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether she was worth the truth. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. His name was Marcus. He was my best friend. Bastian's voice went hollow. He was also beating his mate, breaking her bones, burning her skin, making her life hell. I reported it to the Alpha. Your father said there wasn't enough proof. So I handled it myself. Callista's breath caught. You killed him to protect her. I killed him because no one else would. Chapter 2. Silence stretched between them, heavy with understanding. Calista had heard the official story, that Bastian was a murderer, unstable, dangerous. But standing here, seeing the pain carved into his features, she knew there was more. What happened to her? Calista asked quietly. The mate. She thanked me. Then she testified against me at the trial. His laugh was bitter. Turns out being beaten was better than being alone. At least that's what she told your father. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, princess. It's just survival dressed up in pretty rules. She wanted to argue, to defend her father's judgment, but the words wouldn't come. How many times had she seen injustice masked as order? How many wolves had suffered in silence because speaking up meant risking everything? "Why did you save me?" she asked instead. Bastian turned toward the river, his profile sharp in the dappled sunlight. "Honestly, I don't know. Instinct, maybe. Or stupidity." He glanced at her. "Probably stupidity." "Well, thank you. For your stupidity." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "You should go home. Will you be here tomorrow?" "Why would you come back?" "Because I want to." He shook his head slowly. "You're going to get us both killed." "Is that a yes?" This time, he did smile. Small, reluctant, but real. "You're relentless. I prefer determined." "Same thing." She grinned. "Tomorrow, then." As she turned to leave, Bastian called out, "Calista." She stopped, surprised he'd used her name. "Be careful. The rogues aren't the only dangerous things in these woods." She met his eyes. "I know." From that day forward, Calista found reasons to slip away. She'd tell the guards she was visiting the healers, or checking the southern borders, or training in the yards. Then she'd shift into her white wolf form and run until the castle disappeared behind the trees. Bastian was always waiting by the river. At first, they didn't talk much. They'd sit in comfortable silence, watching the water flow, listening to birdsong. But slowly, conversations began. Small things at first: the weather, the forest, stories of travelers passing through. Then deeper things. "Do you miss it?" Calista asked one afternoon. They sat on opposite sides of a fallen log, close but not touching. "Being part of a pack." Bastian picked at the bark, not meeting her eyes. "Sometimes. Not the politics or the hierarchy. But the belonging? Yeah. I miss that." "What's it like?" "Being alone. Quiet. Simple. Lonely." He tossed a piece of bark into the river. "But at least I'm free. No one tells me who to be or what to do. No one's expectations to live up to." She understood that more than he knew. "My father has my entire life planned. Who I'll marry, how I'll rule, what decisions I'll make. Sometimes I feel like I'm just playing a role in someone else's story." "So stop playing. It's not that easy. It never is." He finally looked at her. "But you're stronger than you think, Calista. I've seen it." Her heart did something strange in her chest. "You barely know me. I know you came back here even though I told you not to. I know you asked about Marcus when most people wouldn't care. I know you're sitting here with an exile instead of safe behind castle walls." His gray eyes held hers. "That takes strength." She wanted to say something, but words failed her. So she just smiled, hoping it conveyed everything she couldn't speak. The weeks passed like water flowing downstream, inevitable, natural, impossible to stop. Calista found herself thinking about Bastian during council meetings, during training sessions, during the long nights when sleep wouldn't come. She traced the memory of his voice, the way shadows played across his scars, the rare moments when his guarded expression softened. She was falling, and she knew it. Bastian felt it too, though he fought it harder. He'd catch himself watching her laugh and force himself to look away. He'd feel the pull toward her and remind himself of all the reasons it could never work. But every day she appeared through the trees, every conversation that lasted longer than the last, every accidental touch that sent electricity through his veins, it wore down his resistance. One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and pink, Calista asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Do you believe in the moon's curse? In fated mates?" Bastian's expression tightened. "I believe the moon takes what it wants. Whether that's fate or just cruelty, I don't know." "Have you ever felt it? The pull toward someone?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, barely above a whisper, "Once." Her breath caught. "What happened?" "Nothing. Because I was smart enough to walk away before the moon could notice. He stood abruptly. We should stop this. Stop what? This. Us. These meetings. His voice was harsh, but his eyes were desperate. You know what happens to wolves who get too close. The moon sees connection and calls it fate. And fate means one of us dies while the other lives with the guilt forever. Calista stood too, closing the distance between them. Bastion. I won't let you die because of me. You don't get to make that choice. Yes, I do. He grabbed her shoulders, and for the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. Listen to me. The full moon is in 1 week. If the Oracle even suspects we're connected, if the moon senses what's between us, one of us will be taken. And the other. His voice cracked. The other will have to live knowing they survived while their mate didn't. What is between us? The question stopped him cold. His hands trembled against her shoulders. His breathing was ragged. And when he finally spoke, his voice broke. Everything. Nothing. I don't know. He released her, stepping back. But whatever it is, it's not worth your life. Tears burned Callista's eyes. What if I think it is? Then you're a fool. Maybe. But I'm not walking away. Bastion looked at her like she was breaking his heart. You have to. No. She stepped forward again, closing the gap he'd tried to create. I'm not afraid of the moon. I'm not afraid of fate. The only thing I'm afraid of is never knowing what we could be. His resolve cracked. She saw it in the way his shoulders sagged, the way his eyes softened, the way he stopped trying to maintain distance. Chapter 3. Calista. Chapter 3. Calista, he breathed, and her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. She reached up, cupping his scarred face in her hands. Tell me you feel it too. Tell me I'm not imagining this. For a moment, he just stared at her, every wall he'd built crumbling. Then he leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers, his eyes closing. I feel it, he whispered. God help me, I feel everything. They stood like that as the sun set and the first stars appeared. Not kissing, not moving, just breathing the same air and letting themselves feel what they'd both been fighting. When Calista finally pulled away, the moon was rising. Still 3 days from full, but bright enough to cast silver shadows through the trees. I should go, she said, though she didn't move. Yeah. Bastion didn't move either. Tomorrow. He nodded. Tomorrow. But tomorrow brought something neither of them expected. Calista was helping her father review trade agreements when the Oracle arrived. The old woman moved like a shadow, her silver robes trailing behind her, her eyes glowing with ancient power. The moon has spoken, she announced, her voice echoing through the hall. Every wolf in the castle stopped. Servants froze mid-task. Guards straightened. Callista's blood went cold. It's too early, her father said, standing from his seat. The full moon isn't for 3 more days. The moon does not follow our schedules. The Oracle's gaze swept the room. It has made its choice. The fated ones have been marked. Callista's heart hammered against her ribs. Around her, wolves touched their chests nervously, checking for the mark, the silver brand that appeared on those the moon chose. Speak their names, Alpha Ironclaw commanded. The Oracle's eyes found Calista. Time seemed to slow. Calista Ironclaw, daughter of the Alpha. The room erupted in gasps. Her father's face went pale. Calista felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. No. No, this couldn't be happening. And Bastion Griffin, the lone wolf of the Bleeding Lands. Silence crashed over the hall like a wave. Then chaos. Wolves shouted, argued, demanded the Oracle repeat herself. But Calista heard none of it. Her ears were ringing, her vision tunneling. The moon had chosen her. And Bastion. She looked down at her chest and saw it, the mark burning through her clothing, a silver crescent moon glowing against her skin. It didn't hurt, but she could feel it, a brand that marked her as the moon's property. Her father was at her side instantly. No. This is wrong. She's my daughter, my heir. The moon does not concern itself with titles, the oracle said calmly. The bond exists. The debt will be paid. What bond? Calista managed to choke out. I barely know him. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. She knew Bastian better than she'd known anyone. She understood him in ways that defied explanation. The connection between them wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. Soul deep and undeniable. The moon had seen it. And now it wanted payment. There must be a way to break it, her father said desperately. A ritual, a sacrifice. There is no breaking what the moon has bound. The oracle's expression was almost sympathetic. In 3 days, when the moon reaches fullness, they must present themselves at the sacred grove. One soul will be offered, one will remain. The choice is theirs. Callista's stomach twisted. We have to choose. Who lives and who dies? That is the moon's mercy, the oracle said softly. One may survive. One must be consumed. If no choice is made, the moon will take both. You're asking me to watch my daughter die, her father roared. Or asking her to watch her mate die, the oracle replied. The cruelty is equal. The pain is shared. That is the nature of the curse. The weight of those words settled over the room like a shroud. Calista ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just shifted into her wolf form and bolted from the castle. Guards called after her, but she was faster. She ran through the gates, through the town, into the forest beyond. She ran until her paws bled and her lungs screamed, and she didn't stop until she reached the river. Bastian was there, on his knees, clutching his chest. The silver mark glowed through his shirt, pulsing in time with his ragged breathing. Bastian, she gasped, shifting back to human form. He looked up at her with devastated eyes. I felt it. The moment the oracle spoke, I felt it brand me. His voice was raw. I tried to warn you. I tried to stay away. But we were too late. She collapsed beside him, and he caught her, pulling her against his chest. They held each other as the reality sank in. The moon had chosen them. In 3 days, one of them would die. There has to be a way, Calista said desperately. Some loophole, some ancient magic. There isn't. Bastian's arms tightened around her. I've spent 5 years studying the curse, trying to understand it. The moon feeds on the potential of love, on all the futures that could have been. Once you're marked, the only choice is who survives. I won't choose, she said fiercely. I won't decide which one of us dies. Then we both will. His voice was gentle. The moon doesn't accept refusal, Calista. If we don't choose, it takes both. That's how it forces the decision. She pulled back to look at him, tears streaming down her face. So what do we do? Flip a coin? Draw straws? How do you decide something like this? Bastian cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. I've already decided. It'll be me. No. Yes. His voice was firm. You're the Alpha's daughter. Your pack needs you. Your father needs you. You have a future, a purpose. I'm just an exile with blood on his hands. You're everything to me, she choked out. And you're everything to me. Which is why I won't let you die. They argued as the moon rose higher, both trying to convince the other to be the one who lived. But neither would yield. Their love was too fierce, too complete. Each would rather die than survive without the other. Finally, exhausted, they fell silent. There's one option we haven't considered, Calista said quietly. Bastian looked at her warily. What? What if neither of us chooses? What if we refuse to play the moon's game and face it together? Calista, that's suicide. Is it? She sat up straighter. Or is it the only way we both win? If one dies and one lives, we're both destroyed. But if we go together, we're still dead. But we're together. She grabbed his hands. Bastian, I've been thinking. What if the reason the curse is so powerful is because it forces separation? It feeds on the agony of the one left behind. But what if we don't give it that? What if we offer something it's never tasted before? Understanding dawned in his eyes. A love that refuses to be broken. Exactly. It's insane. It's the only way. He stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her close. If we do this, there's no going back. I know. We could both die for nothing. Or we could change everything. She pressed her forehead to his. I'd rather die with you than live without you. His breath shuddered. So would I. They held each other as stars appeared overhead, and made their choice. Chapter 4. The next day, Bastian took her north. There's something you need to see, he said as they traveled through the forest. Something I found years ago when I was trying to understand the curse. They walked for hours until the trees grew twisted and dark, the air thick with ancient power. Finally, they reached a mountainside where a temple had been carved into the rock itself, the Temple of Shadows, its entrance covered in runes that glowed faintly. What is this place? Calista whispered. Where the truth has been hidden for centuries. They entered together, moving through corridors lit by phosphorescent moss. The walls were covered in murals depicting wolves and celestial beings, battles and sacrifices. Bastian led her deeper until they reached a massive chamber. And there, painted across the entire wall, was a mural that made Callista's blood run cold. A wolf in royal robes, her family's crest emblazoned on his chest, knelt before an enormous moon. His hands were raised in supplication, and from his chest flowed streams of light that fed into the celestial body above. Beneath it, ancient text glowed faintly. Can you read this? Calista asked, her voice shaking. Bastian moved closer, his expression grim. It's old tongue. It says, in the year of the Great War, when wolf turned against wolf and blood soaked the earth, Alpha Ironclaw the first made covenant with the moon god. To end the slaughter and bring peace to the packs, he offered a tithe, the souls of fated lovers, one taken each full moon, to sustain the balance and protect all wolves from destruction. The moon accepted. The war ended. And the debt has been paid in blood and sorrow ever since. Calista felt like she couldn't breathe. My ancestor. My family created the curse. Calista. All this time. Her voice cracked. All this time, I thought it was just the way things were. Some ancient law of nature. But it was us. My bloodline damned countless lovers to this fate. She turned to stare at the mural, at her ancestor's face painted with such certainty, such righteousness. How many people have died because of what he did? Bastian pulled her into his arms as she began to shake. You're not responsible for what your ancestors did. But I carry their name. Their blood. Tears streamed down her face. Every person the moon has taken, every soul consumed, every survivor left hollow and broken, it's because of my family. He was trying to stop a war. And he started a different kind of war. Her voice turned hard. One where love itself became the weapon. Where the moon learned to feed on our deepest connections and turn them into fuel for its hunger. She pulled away from Bastian, staring up at the mural with fury and grief warring in her chest. The alpha in the painting looked so certain, as if sacrificing love for peace was a fair trade. As if the agony of separated souls was an acceptable price. He had no right, she said quietly. No right to make that bargain for every generation that came after. No right to decide that love was expendable. Bastian stood beside her, his hand finding hers. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that if my family started this curse, then I'm going to end it. She turned to face him, her silver eyes blazing. The moon takes one and leaves one alive, feeding on their separation, their grief, their broken bond. It sustained itself on that agony for centuries. Yes. But what if we don't give it that? What if we refuse to separate? Her grip on his hand tightened. You said the moon feeds on potential, on futures that never happen. But Bastian, we've had 3 weeks. 3 weeks of choosing each other, knowing each other, falling in love. That's not potential, that's real. Understanding flickered across his face. You want to give the moon something it's never had. A complete love. Not broken, not separated, not torn apart. Whole. She stepped closer to him. If we both offer ourselves willingly, together, our souls intertwined, maybe it'll be enough. Maybe it'll satisfy the hunger so completely that the curse breaks. Or maybe we just die, Bastian said softly. Maybe. But even if we do, we die together. On our terms. Not as victims of my ancestors' bargain, but as 2 people who loved each other enough to fight back. Her voice grew stronger. And if there's even a chance that our sacrifice ends this curse forever, that no other lovers have to face this choice, isn't that worth it? Bastian stared at her for a long moment. Then he cupped her face in his scarred hands. You realize what you're asking? We're not just risking death. We're guaranteeing it. I know. Your father will lose his only heir. Your pack will lose their future alpha. They'll survive. They're strong. She covered his hands with hers. But I can't survive without you. And I won't ask you to survive without me. I wouldn't want to, he whispered. These 3 weeks with you, they've been more life than I've had in 5 years of exile. More joy than I ever thought I deserved. His thumb brushed her cheek. If this is all we get, it's enough. It's more than enough. She smiled through her tears. It's everything. They kissed then, surrounded by ancient murals and the weight of history. It was gentle and fierce all at once, a promise and a goodbye, a beginning and an ending. When they finally pulled apart, Bastian pressed his forehead to hers. Together. Together. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Not for survival, but for sacrifice. They wrote letters to those they'd leave behind, Calista to her father, Bastian to the few wolves who'd shown him kindness during his exile. They gathered herbs for the ritual, studied the old texts in the temple, and memorized the words they would speak. But mostly, they just loved each other. They talked through the nights, sharing every memory, every dream, every secret they'd never told another soul. They laughed and cried and held each other as the hours slipped away. They made love under the stars, fierce and tender, claiming each moment as if it could last forever. On the final day, as the sun began to set and the full moon prepared to rise, they made their way to the sacred grove. The entire pack had gathered. Callista's father stood at the front, his face carved with anguish. When he saw her approaching hand in hand with Bastian, he started forward. Calista, please. There must be another way. I'll find it, I swear. Just give me more time. There is no more time, father. She hugged him tightly. And there is no other way. But I need you to know, I'm not afraid. I'm not sad. I'm grateful. Grateful. His voice broke. I got to fall in love. Really, truly fall in love. How many people can say that? She pulled back, smiling through her tears. I got 3 perfect weeks with someone who saw me, not as an alpha's daughter or an heir, but just as me. That's more than most people get in a lifetime. But you could have had a lifetime. Not without him. And he couldn't have one without me. She glanced at Bastian, who stood waiting, giving them their moment. We made our choice, father. And it's the right one. Alpha Ironclaw looked at Bastian then, and something passed between them. An understanding. A respect born of shared love for the same fierce, impossible woman. Take care of her, Ironclaw said roughly. Even in death. Bastian nodded. Always. The oracle stepped forward, her ancient eyes sad but knowing. You understand what you're offering? Both of you, together, willingly? This has never been done. We understand, Calista said. The moon may not accept. It may take you both and give nothing in return. We know. The oracle studied them for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then step into the circle. And may your love be enough. Chapter 5. Calista and Bastian walked hand in hand to the center of the sacred grove, where silver moonlight pooled like liquid mercury on the ground. The moment they stepped inside the circle, the marks on their chests blazed brilliant and bright, and the full moon above swelled larger, more luminous than anyone had ever seen. The pull began immediately. Calista gasped as she felt it, a hook buried deep in her soul, tugging upward, trying to draw her essence toward the sky. Beside her, Bastian's hand tightened in hers, his jaw clenched against the same sensation. The oracle's voice rang out, "The moon demands its due. Who will be given? Who will remain?" "Neither," Calista said, her voice carrying across the grove. "And both." She turned to Bastian, and they spoke the words they'd practiced, the vow they'd written together. "We offer not separation, but unity. Not one soul broken from another, but two souls intertwined. We give you not the agony of loss, but the completeness of love fully realized. Take us together, moon god, or take us not at all. But know this," her voice grew stronger, "you will never separate us. Not in this life, and not in whatever comes after." The moon pulsed, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Then the pull intensified 1,000-fold. Calista screamed as her essence began to unravel, pulled upward in streams of silver light. But Bastian's arms wrapped around her, his forehead pressed to hers, and she felt his presence anchoring her even as he too was being torn apart. "I've got you," he gasped. "I've got you. Don't let go," she whispered. "Promise me you won't let go." "Never." They held each other tighter as the light consumed them, their bodies becoming translucent, their physical forms dissolving into pure energy. But unlike every other sacrifice the moon had claimed, unlike every other soul torn from its mate and devoured alone, they remained connected. Their energies merged, silver and shadow, light and darkness, intertwining so completely that the moon couldn't separate them. It tried, pulling harder, demanding one over the other. But Calista and Bastian had forged something in their 3 weeks together that was stronger than celestial hunger. They had chosen each other, fully and completely, with no regrets and no reservations. And that choice became unbreakable. The moon's pull changed. The hunger that had defined it for centuries suddenly stilled, as if tasting something it had never encountered before. Not the potential of love, but love realized. Not the agony of separation, but the peace of unity. Not one soul broken and bleeding, but two souls complete and whole even in death. The moon shuddered. And then it began to change. The light that had been pulling Calista and Bastian upward suddenly gentled, becoming warm instead of cold, embracing instead of consuming. Their consciousness remained intact even as their bodies dissolved completely. They could feel each other, sense each other, exist together in a space beyond physical form. "What's happening?" Callista's voice was thought more than sound. "I don't know," Bastian replied, his presence wrapped around hers. "But I'm still here. We're still here." The transformation continued, lifting them higher and higher into the night sky. Below, the pack watched in awe as two streams of light spiraled upward, dancing around each other, never separating even as they climbed toward the stars. The oracle's voice rose in wonder. "The moon accepts. Not with hunger, but with reverence." Alpha Ironclaw fell to his knees, his eyes tracking the rising lights. "Calista," he breathed, his voice breaking. The lights climbed higher, past the clouds, past the atmosphere, into the vast darkness of space where stars burned cold and eternal. And there, in the infinite expanse, Calista and Bastian's energies began to settle, to solidify into something new. They became light itself. Two stars, brighter than any in the surrounding sky, circling each other in perfect synchronicity. Their consciousness expanded, no longer bound by flesh or time or fear. They could feel the cosmic currents, the pull of gravity, the song of distant galaxies. But more than any of that, they felt each other. Constant, present, unbreakable. "We're stars," Calista whispered in wonder. "Together," Bastian replied, his essence intertwined with hers so completely that where one ended and the other began no longer mattered. Below them, or perhaps above, direction meant nothing now. They could see the world they'd left. The sacred grove. The pack standing in stunned silence. And something else. The moon was changing. Its light, which had always carried a cold, hungry quality, was softening. The silver glow that had demanded blood and souls for centuries was fading, becoming gentler, warmer. The oracle staggered, her hand pressed to her chest. "The curse," she gasped. "It's breaking." The pack erupted in chaos. Wolves shouted questions, demanded explanations. But the oracle simply pointed upward, to the two new stars burning impossibly bright in the northern sky. "They did it," she said, tears streaming down her ancient face. "They satisfied the moon so completely that it no longer hungers. Their love, given freely, completely, without separation, it was enough. More than enough." Her voice rose with wonder. "The moon has been fed for the first time in centuries. Truly fed. And now it releases its claim." All across the territories, fated lovers who had been living in fear, who had been dreading the next full moon, who had been preparing to make the impossible choice, they felt it. The weight lifted. The shadow passed. The curse that had haunted generations dissolved like morning mist. In the sacred grove, Alpha Ironclaw stood slowly, his eyes still fixed on the two stars that held his daughter's light. Around him, wolves began to howl, not in mourning, but in celebration. In gratitude. In awe of what had been given. "She saved us," someone whispered. "They saved everyone," another corrected. The oracle raised her arms to the sky. "Let it be known across all packs, across all territories. Calista Ironclaw and Bastion Griffin have ended the moon's curse. Their sacrifice was not one of separation, but of unity. They proved that love, when complete and unbroken, is stronger than any celestial hunger. The debt is paid. The curse is lifted. Never again will fated lovers be torn apart." The howling grew louder, a chorus of gratitude rising to the stars. And from their place in the cosmos, Calista and Bastion heard it. "They're free," Calista said, feeling the joy radiating from the world below. "Because of us," Bastion replied. "Because we refuse to play by the rules." "Do you regret it?" She felt his answer not in words, but in the way his light pulsed against hers, warm and steady and sure. "Not for a second. This us here together for eternity, it's better than any life we could have lived apart." "Even without the castle? The pack? Everything I was supposed to be?" "You're exactly what you were supposed to be," he said softly. "You're the one who broke a curse that enslaved generations. You're the one who proved love doesn't have to end in tragedy. And you're mine. Forever." "Forever," she agreed, her light dancing with his. Time passed differently in the cosmos. Minutes became years, years became decades. The world below continued its endless cycle. Seasons changed, generations were born and died, the packs evolved and grew. But the curse remained broken. A testament to two wolves who had dared to defy an ancient hunger. Calista and Bastion watched it all from their celestial home. They saw fated lovers meet and grow old together, saw children who would have been orphaned by the curse grow up with both parents, saw joy replace fear in the eyes of those who fell in love. "We changed the world," Calista marveled one night. Or perhaps it was a century later, time had lost all meaning. "You changed the world," Bastion corrected. "I just followed where you led. We did it together." Like everything else. Young wolves began to make pilgrimages to the sacred grove where the transformation had occurred. They'd lie on their backs and stare up at the constellation, two bright stars eternally circling each other, and make wishes. Wishes for love. Wishes for courage. Wishes for the strength to choose each other even when the world made it difficult. And sometimes, on the clearest nights, when the wishes were earnest and the hearts were pure, the two stars would pulse a little brighter, as if answering. The story spread beyond the wolf packs. Other supernatural beings heard of the lovers who had broken an ancient curse through the sheer power of their unity. Vampires spoke of them in hushed tones. Witches studied their sacrifice, seeking to understand the magic of such complete devotion. Humans, who could not see the supernatural world but sensed its presence, created their own legends, tales of star-crossed lovers who became actual stars. Alpha Iron Claw ruled for many more years, and though he never remarried, never produced another heir, he carried his daughter's memory with pride. On his deathbed, surrounded by the pack she had saved, his last words were simple. She was right. Some things are worth more than survival. She taught us that love, real love, is worth everything. When he died, his soul passed into whatever afterlife awaited wolves, but before it did, he swore he felt a warmth from the northern sky, and heard a voice, his daughter's voice, whisper, "I love you, Father. Thank you for letting me choose." Generations later, when the events had passed into legend, when the original witnesses had all died and been replaced by their great-great-grandchildren, the story remained. It was told to pups at bedtime, recited by oracles during ceremonies, carved into stone monuments across every territory. The tale of Calista Iron Claw, the Alpha's daughter who fell in love with an exile, and Bastion Griffin, the lone wolf who found belonging in her arms. Two souls who were told one of them had to die, and who instead chose to transform death into something eternal. The Temple of Shadows, where Calista had discovered her family's sin, became a pilgrimage site. Wolves would journey there to see the mural of the first Alpha making his terrible bargain, and then they would stand beneath the stars he had inadvertently created. They'd reflect on the cost of peace, the weight of choices made by those long dead, and the courage it takes to forge a different path. And on the clearest nights, when the moon is full and gentle, no longer hungry, no longer demanding, you can still see them. Look to the northern sky, just above the horizon where the forest meets the stars. 2 points of light, brighter than any others, circling each other in an eternal dance. Some say if you look carefully, you can make out their shapes. 2 wolves, running through the cosmos side by side, never tiring, never separating, forever free. The astronomers can't explain them. The star's orbit defies conventional physics. Their brightness fluctuates in patterns that suggest consciousness rather than nuclear fusion, and they appeared overnight with no scientific explanation, just suddenly burning in a space that had been empty the night before. But the wolves know. And on nights when young lovers face impossible choices, when the world demands they compromise who they are or who they love, they look up at those stars and remember. Some bonds are stronger than death. Some loves are worth everything. And sometimes, the greatest act of defiance is not fighting against the darkness, but holding tight to the light you've found and refusing to let go, no matter what it costs. The curse is broken. The moon is satisfied. Faded lovers across all territories now grow old together, their hands wrinkled and intertwined, their love no longer a death sentence but a blessing. All because 2 wolves decided that being together, even in death, was better than living apart. All because Calista looked at an impossible choice and found a third option. All because Bastion loved her enough to follow her into the unknown. And now they shine eternal witnesses to their own revolution, proof that love doesn't have to end in tragedy. Sometimes it transforms into something even more beautiful than life itself. On clear nights, you might see them. 2 stars in the northern sky, shaped like wolves running side by side through the cosmos. They pulse with warmth, with light, with the kind of love that changed the world. The packs call them the eternal guardians. The unbroken bond. The stars that chose. But their real names are simpler, whispered by those who understand what they sacrificed and what they gained. Calista and Bastion. The lovers who taught the moon what it means to be satisfied. The souls who proved that some choices, the hardest ones, the impossible ones, the ones that cost everything, are still worth making. And as you stand beneath their light, as you feel the warmth of their distant glow, you might ask yourself, if love demanded everything from you, your future, your life, your very existence, and the only way to keep it whole was to let go of the world entirely, would you have the courage to say yes? Would you choose love over survival? Would you hold on, even as everything else dissolved into light? Or would you let go, believing that living half a life is better than dying complete? They made their choice. The stars remember. What would yours be?